My name's Jack Tanner, and I reckon I've always been the guy who tries to keep the peace. That's how I ended up standing on the back porch of my wife's Uncle Ray's house, holding a tray of smoked ribs I'd spent all night perfecting, while her family buzzed around the picnic tables like I wasn't even there. It was the 4th of July barbecue, a big deal for the Larson clan, my wife Sarah's people. They'd been doing the shindig since she was a kid, and I'd been tagging along for 7 years now, ever since we tied the knot. But this time, something in me broke, and I ain't talking about the ribs. I'd pulled into Ray's driveway that morning with Sarah, the smoker still warm in the truck bed from cooking those ribs low and slow. Took me 12 hours, a couple of beers, and a playlist of Merle Haggard to get him just right. I figured it'd be my ticket to finally fitting in with this crew. See, the Larsons never really took to me. I'm a welder, a guy who works with his hands, not some office type like Sarah's cousin Tim or her brother Greg. They'd always treated me like I was just Sarah's shadow, useful when they needed something fixed, invisible the rest of the time. So there I was, stepping onto the porch with that tray, the smell of hickory and spice wafting up, and I hear Tim's voice cut through the chatter. Hey, Jack, just find a spot on the grass or something. We didn't figure on extras this year. He laughed, elbowing Greg, who smirked over his Bud Light. I froze, ribs still hot in my hands, and glanced around. The tables were packed, plates piled with burgers, hot dogs, potato salad, but not a single empty seat. Kids ran around with sparklers, and gossiped over sweet tea, and Sarah was off by the cooler, chatting with her mom, Linda, like she didn't notice me standing there like a dang fool. Extras, I said, my voice tighter than I meant it to be. I'm Sarah's husband, Tim. Been coming to these things for years. He waved a hand, not even looking at me. Yeah, you know how it is. Too many folks, not enough chairs. Grab a spot by the shed or something. Greg snorted. Maybe the dog will share his blanket. He's got room. A couple of cousins chuckled, and I felt my face heat up, not from the July sun, but from something boiling deep inside. I set the ribs down on the porch rail, slow and deliberate, and said, good thing these weren't planned either, huh? Then I reached into my back pocket, pulled out a folded piece of paper I'd been carrying for weeks, and slid it across the nearest table, right between the baked beans and the coleslaw. The laughter died fast. Linda looked up from her tea, frowning. What's that, Jack? She asked, her tone sharp like I'd interrupted something important. I didn't answer right away. I just stood there, staring at Tim's smug face, Greg's half-drunk grin, and the rest of them acting like I was some stray dog begging for scraps. Then I turned and walked back toward the truck, leaving the ribs behind. Jack, what the heck? Sarah called after me, but I didn't stop. I heard someone, maybe Ray, say, what's in the paper, and then a gasp as they unfolded it. I was almost to the driveway when Tim yelled, you serious, man? This is a Lien notice. That's when the shouting started. 5 hours earlier, I'd been at home, standing in the bathroom, staring at myself in the mirror. My hands were still greasy from the smoker, my flannel shirt smelled like charcoal, and I was trying to psych myself up. You're doing this for Sarah, I muttered, scrubbing my knuckles raw. Not for them. But deep down, I knew the truth. The Larsons never saw me as family, just a guy who showed up with their golden girl and didn't quite fit the mold. I'd spent years bending over backwards to prove I belonged, and it never mattered. It started way back at our wedding. I overheard Linda tell Ray, he's a good kid, but he's not really our kind. Sarah'll figure it out eventually. Ray just grunted, like he agreed but didn't care enough to say it. I brushed it off then, figured they'd warm up once they knew me. So I tried. I fixed Ray's truck when it broke down, welded a new gate for their farm, even rebuilt Linda's porch swing after a storm took it out. Every family gathering, I brought something: ribs, brisket, hell, one year I hauled a whole keg of beer. But it was always the same. Thanks, Jack, they'd say, then turn back to their own little world like I'd vanished. When Sarah's dad passed a few years back, I stepped up big. Greg was drowning in debt from some bad business deal, so I took out a loan to help him keep his auto shop. Linda's house needed a new roof, so I paid for half of it, no questions asked. Tim needed a co-signer for his new boat. Guess who signed? Me. I told myself it was for Sarah, to keep her family afloat. But they never said thank you. Not once. Instead, they'd joke about Jack the handyman, or Sarah's charity case, when they thought I couldn't hear. Last year's barbecue was the kicker. They stuck me at a card table by the garage with the teenagers, my name scratched on a napkin like an afterthought. Sarah said, it's just seating. Don't make a big deal. But it was a big deal. They praised Tim for bringing a six-pack of Coors while eyeballing my homemade barbecue like it was some desperate plea for attention. Linda once muttered to Greg, he tries too hard. You can tell he's not one of us. I heard it, swallowed it, kept going. Until today. That Lien notice? It was for Greg's shop. I'd been covering his payments for months, quiet-like, so he wouldn't lose it. But he missed 3 in a row, and the bank was done waiting. I could have bailed him out again, my credit's solid, but standing there on that porch, ribs in hand, hearing them laugh about me sitting on the grass? Nah, I was done. I drove off with the radio off, the silence louder than any song, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel guilty. They could figure it out without me. I didn't even make it halfway down Ray's gravel driveway before my phone started buzzing in my pocket. I ignored it, kept my eyes on the road, hands tied on the steering wheel of my old Ford pickup. The Lien notice I dropped on that picnic table was like a grenade with the pin pulled, and I knew the explosion was coming. Didn't take long. By the time I hit the stop sign at the end of their road, Sarah's name lit up the screen. I let it go to voicemail, then turned the phone face down on the passenger seat. I wasn't ready to hear her yet, not after 7 years of her shrugging off her family's crap like it was no big deal. I drove straight home, about 20 minutes through back roads lined with cornfields and rusty barns. The whole way, I kept replaying that moment, Tim's laugh, Greg's smirk, the way they all acted like I was some drifter who'd wandered into their sacred barbecue. I'd given those people everything I had, my time, my money, my sweat, and they couldn't even spare me a chair. By the time I pulled into my driveway, the anger had settled into something colder, something solid. I wasn't just mad anymore. I was done. Our house is a little two-bedroom place, nothing fancy, but it's ours. I parked the truck, grabbed a beer from the fridge, and sat on the back steps, staring at the smoker still sitting in the bed. Those ribs were probably cold by now, picked over by Ray's mutt or tossed in the trash. Didn't matter. I cracked the beer and took a long pull, letting the quiet sink in. That's when I heard tires crunching gravel, Sarah's Jeep rolling up fast. She didn't even shut the door before she was storming toward me, her face red and her ponytail swinging like she was ready to fight. "Jack, what the hell was that?" she snapped, stopping a few feet away, hands on her hips. "You just drop a Lien notice on Greg's shop and walk out? Everyone's losing their minds back there." I looked up at her, calm as I could manage. Good. Maybe they'll figure out how to sit without me propping him up for once. I took another sip of beer, and her eyes narrowed. "This isn't funny," she said. "Greg's freaking out, Mom's crying, and Tim's saying you're trying to ruin the family. What's wrong with you? What's wrong with me?" I set the can down on the step, slow and deliberate, and stood up. "Sarah, I've been hauling your family's weight for years. I fixed Ray's truck, paid for your mom's roof, co-signed Tim's damn boat. I took out that loan for Greg's shop when he was too proud to ask anyone else. And what do I get? Find a spot on the grass, Jack. Like I'm some stray they feel sorry for." She crossed her arms, her jaw tight. "It's a barbecue, Jack. It's not that deep. We were short on chairs and—" "Bull," I cut her off. "It ain't about chairs. It's about respect. 7 years, Sarah. 7 years I've been trying to be part of your family, and they still treat me like I'm just the guy you brought along. You never say a word about it. You just let him laugh." Her face softened for a second, but then she shook her head. "You're overreacting. They don't mean it like that. It's just how they are." "How they are," I repeated, letting the words hang there. "And how about you? You okay with how they are?" "'Cause I ain't. Not anymore." She stared at me like she didn't know what to say. Then her phone buzzed, and she glanced at it, probably Linda or Greg, ready to pile on. "I've got to go back," she said, voice quieter now. "They're a mess. We'll talk later, okay?" "Yeah," I said, picking up my beer. "You go handle that." She hesitated, then turned and climbed back into her Jeep. I watched her drive off, dust kicking up behind her, and I didn't feel a damn thing. No guilt, no second thoughts. Just tired. About an hour later, the call started again. First it was Ray, leaving a voicemail. "Jack, this is out of line. You can't just threaten Greg's livelihood over a dumb fight. Call me back." Then Tim, real classy, man. Screwing over family like that. "Hope you're proud." I didn't listen to the rest. I turned the phone off and tossed it on the kitchen counter. They could yell all they wanted. I wasn't picking up the pieces this time. See, that Lien notice wasn't just some spur-of-the-moment jab. I'd been carrying it around for weeks, ever since the bank called me about Greg missing payments. I'd covered the first 2, thinking he'd get back on his feet. But 3 more went by, and he didn't even tell me, just kept cashing my checks and grinning at me across the dinner table. The bank said they'd start foreclosure if it wasn't squared up soon, and my name was on the hook 'cause I'd co-signed. I could have paid it again, kept it quiet like always. But standing there on that porch, hearing them laugh, I decided Greg could sink or swim on his own. By nightfall, the house was dead quiet. Sarah didn't come back, probably crashing at her mom's to calm things down. I didn't care. I grabbed another beer, flipped on the TV, and watched some old John Wayne flick till I passed out on the couch. When I woke up, the sun was barely up, and my phone was blinking with missed calls, 15 of them. I scrolled through. Sarah, Linda, Ray, even Greg, who'd never called me direct in his life. I didn't listen to a single message. Instead, I got up, made coffee, and sat out back again, watching the dew burn off the grass. That's when I heard the rumble of an engine, Greg's beat-up Chevy pulling into my drive. He climbed out, slamming the door, and marched toward me like a man on a mission. His face was pale, eyes bloodshot, and he was clutching that Lien notice in his fist. "Jack," he said, voice shaking with something between rage and panic. "You gotta fix this. The bank's calling me nonstop. They're gonna take the shop." I leaned back against the steps, sipping my coffee. "Sounds like a you problem, Greg. You co-signed it," he barked. "You can't just walk away." "Watch me," I said, meeting his glare. "I covered your ass for months. You didn't even say thanks. Now you're out of payments, and I'm out of patience." He crumpled the paper in his hand, stepping closer. "You're gonna ruin me over some stupid barbecue? We're family, man. Family don't treat family like a damn ATM. I shot back. "You figure it out, Greg. I'm done." He stood there, breathing hard, then turned and stormed off, kicking gravel as he went. I watched him peel out, and for the first time in years, I felt something like peace. The Larsons could scream all they wanted. I wasn't their fix-it guy anymore. The next couple of days after Greg peeled out of my driveway were quieter than I expected. No more trucks roaring up, no more phone buzzing like a hornet's nest. I figured the Larsons were either too mad to talk or too busy scrambling to save Greg's shop. Didn't matter to me either way. I'd said my piece, dropped that Lien notice like a brick through a window, and I wasn't planning to pick up the shards. For once, I was going to let them deal with their own mess. I spent that first morning after the blowout working in my garage. Got a little welding setup out there. Nothing fancy, just a bench, a torch, and some scrap metal I tinker with when I need to think. I was fixing up an old chair I'd found on the curb, sparks flying as I fused the legs back together. The noise drowned out everything else, and for a few hours, I didn't have to hear Tim's snarky voice or Linda's guilt trips in my head. Sarah still hadn't come home, and I hadn't called her. Figured she'd show when she was ready, or she wouldn't. Either way, I wasn't chasing her down. Around noon, I wiped the sweat off my face, grabbed a Coke from the fridge, and sat on the porch to cool off. That's when I saw the mail truck roll by. I ambled down to the box, expecting bills or junk, but there was a thick envelope in there. No return address, just my name scrawled in black ink. I tore it open right there in the driveway, and out slid a stack of papers, bank statements, loan docs, and a handwritten note on top. It said, "Jack, you need to see this. Sorry it took so long. Pete." Pete's my buddy from high school, works at the bank downtown. Quiet guy, keeps to himself, but he's always been solid. I flipped through the papers, and my gut twisted. It was Greg's loan file, the one I'd co-signed, but there was more. Someone had opened 2 credit cards in my name, racked up about $8,000 in charges. Home Depot runs, a new TV, even a weekend trip to some lake resort. I hadn't bought any of that. Then I saw the dates last year, right around when Greg started missing payments. My signature was on the applications, but it wasn't my handwriting. Looked more like Ray's blocky scrawl. I stood there, sun beating down, feeling like I'd been sucker punched. All those years I'd been bailing them out. They weren't just taking my money, they were stealing it. I went back inside, spread the papers out on the kitchen table, and stared at him till my eyes burned. Pete's note didn't say much, but it didn't have to. He'd seen something shady and risked his job to tip me off. I owed him a beer. Hell, I owed him a whole case. That afternoon, I drove to the bank. Pete was behind the counter, looking nervous as I walked in. "Jack," he said, keeping his voice low, "you get it?" "Yeah," I said, sliding the envelope across to him. "What the hell's this, Pete? They forging my name now." He glanced around, then leaned in. "I can't say much here, but those cards? They were opened online, linked to your social from the loan app. Someone had access to your info, probably from Ray's place. He's got that old computer in the den, right?" I nodded, remembering how I logged into my bank account there once to transfer money for Linda's roof. "You think they hacked me?" "More like guessed your password," Pete said. "You still use Weldman88 for everything?" I cursed under my breath. "Yeah, I did. Look," he went on, "I flagged it when I saw the charges. You can file a fraud claim, get it off your record. But you gotta move fast." I left the bank with a stack of forms and a fire in my chest. When I got home, I called the credit companies, spent 2 hours on hold, and got the ball rolling to freeze those accounts. By supper time, I was drained, sitting at the table with a cold pizza and a glass of whiskey. That's when Sarah finally showed up. She walked in quiet, set her purse down, and stood there, arms crossed. "Jack," she said, "we need to talk." "About time," I replied, not looking up from my drink. "Where you been?" "At Mom's," she said. "Greg's a wreck. The bank's moving on the shop, and he's blaming you. Says you're abandoning us." I pushed the papers toward her. "Take a look at this, Sarah. Then tell me who's abandoning who." She frowned, picked up the stack, and started reading. Her face went pale as she flipped through credit card statements, my forged signature, the whole damn mess. "What is this?" she whispered. "Your family," I said, voice hard. "They've been using my name to buy crap behind my back. $8,000, Sarah. While I was covering Greg's loan, they were robbing me blind." She shook her head, eyes wide. "No, they wouldn't." "They did," I cut in. "Pete at the bank caught it. Ray's handwriting's all over it. You gonna tell me that's a coincidence?" She sank into a chair, staring at the papers like they'd bite her. "I didn't know," she said, voice small. "Jack, I swear, maybe you didn't," I said, leaning forward. "But you never stuck up for me either. 7 years, Sarah, and I'm still the outsider. They laugh in my face, and you say it's fine. Now this? I'm done." She looked up, tears in her eyes. "What are you saying?" "I'm saying I'm drawing a line," I told her. "I'm filing fraud charges tomorrow. Against Ray, Greg, whoever's in on it. You can stand with me, or you can stand with them. But I ain't bending no more." She didn't say anything, just sat there, hands trembling. After a minute, she got up, grabbed her purse, and walked out. Door clicked shut behind her, and the house went silent again. I finished my whiskey, staring at those papers, and made up my mind. Tomorrow, I'd call a lawyer. The Larsons had taken enough from me: money, time, pride. They weren't getting another inch. Next morning, I was up early, coffee in hand, when Pete texted me. "Heads up, Ray's at the bank raising hell. Thinks you're bluffing. I grinned, cold and sharp. Let him yell. I wasn't bluffing. I dialed my buddy Mike, a lawyer who owed me a favor from fixing his fence last summer. Mike, I said when he picked up, I got a problem. Family's been stealing from me. Can you help? Damn, Jack, he said. Yeah, bring everything over. We'll nail him. I hung up, grabbed the papers, and headed out. The line was drawn, and I was ready to fight. I pulled up to Mike's office that morning with a box of papers under my arm and a knot in my stomach. Mike's a good guy, big fellow with a beard like a lumberjack and a laugh that shakes the room. His law office is just a little storefront downtown, squeezed between a barber shop and a diner, but he's sharp as a tack. I walked in, and he waved me over to a desk piled with files. Jack, you look like hell, he said, grinning. What did the Larsons do this time? Stole from me, I said, dropping the box on his desk. Forged my name on credit cards, racked up $8 grand. Might have messed with Greg's shop loan, too. I'm done playing nice. Mike whistled, digging into the papers. This is a damn mess, man. Pete's got guts sending you this. You sure you want to go after him? Family's tricky. They ain't my family, I said, leaning back in the chair. Not after this. Can you fix it? He nodded, flipping through the bank statements. Oh, we'll fix it. Fraud's clear as day, forged signatures, unauthorized accounts. We'll file with the bank, freeze the cards, and hit him with a civil suit. Criminal charges too, if you're game. Ray and Greg could be looking at jail time. Do it, I said, no hesitation. All of it. Mike grinned wider. That's my boy. Give me a day to draft it up. You got a place to crash if Sarah flips. She's already at her mom's, I said. House is mine for now. Good enough, he replied. Go home, lay low. This is gonna stir the pot. He wasn't kidding. By that afternoon, my phone was lighting up again. Ray, Linda, even Tim, who left a voicemail calling me a backstabber. I didn't listen past the first cuss word. Then Sarah texted, Jack, Mom says you're suing us. Is that true? I typed back, not you. Them. They stole from me. Talk to Ray. She didn't reply. Figured she was picking sides, and it wasn't mine. Next day, Mike called me in. Papers are filed, he said. Bank's investigating the fraud, and I've got a court date set for next month. Ray's already lawyered up, some slick guy from the city. They're claiming it's a misunderstanding, saying you gave him permission. Bull, I snapped. I never signed off on no TV or lake trip. Exactly, Mike said. We've got Pete's docs, your testimony. Their story's flimsy. Sit tight, Jack. This'll get ugly before it gets better. Ugly didn't even cover it. That night, I was grilling a burger out back when Ray's truck roared into my driveway. He stormed out, face red as a beet, and started yelling before he even hit the porch. Jack, you son of a bitch. You're suing me? Over some damn credit cards? I flipped the burger, calm as I could. You forged my name, Ray. Stole $8 grand. What did you expect? He jabbed a finger at me. Your family. You don't drag family through court. Family don't steal. I shot back. You used me like a piggy bank. I'm done. He stepped closer, fist clenched. You'll ruin us. Greg's shop. Linda's savings gone. You happy now? Nope, I said, meeting his glare. But I ain't sad neither. You made this bed. He cursed me out, kicked my trash can over, and peeled out. I finished my burger, but it didn't taste like much. The fight was on, and I wasn't backing down. Couple days later, I got a call from the bank. Mr. Tanner, the lady said, we've frozen the accounts in question. Your credit's clear on those cards, fraud's confirmed. We're cooperating with your lawyer. I thanked her, hung up, and felt a weight lift. Step 1, done. But Greg's shop was still circling the drain, and I knew they'd blame me till the cows came home. Then Sarah showed up again. It was late, sky dark, and I was tinkering in the garage when she knocked. I wiped my hands on a rag and let her in. She looked tired, eyes puffy like she'd been crying. Jack, she said, Mom's a wreck. Greg's drinking again. They say you're tearing us apart. They tore it apart, I said, tossing the rag aside. I didn't forge nothing. Ray did. Greg knew. She bit her lip, staring at the floor. I found stuff on Dad's old computer, logins, passwords. Your name. They used it, Jack. I didn't know. I nodded, slow. You believe me now? Yeah, she whispered. But they're my family. I can't just. You don't have to, I said. I ain't asking you to sue him. Just don't ask me to let it slide. She nodded, tears spilling over. I'm staying at Mom's till this blows over. I need time. Take it, I said. She left, and I went back to welding, the torch hissing louder than my thoughts. The Larsons were crumbling, and I was the match that lit the fuse. But I wasn't sorry, not yet. After Sarah left that night, the house felt bigger than it ever had. Just me, the hum of the fridge, and the clank of tools in the garage. I didn't sleep much, kept thinking about her finding those logins on Ray's computer, how deep this mess went. The Larsons had been playing me for years, and I'd been too dumb or too stubborn to see it. But now the blinders were off, and I wasn't just fighting for my money, I was fighting for my life back. Next morning, I was out back splitting firewood when Pete rolled up in his beat-up Honda. He climbed out, hands in his pockets, looking like a guy who just walked through a storm. Jack, he said, nodding toward the axe in my hand, you planning to chop more than wood with that? I grinned, setting it down. Maybe. What's up? He pulled a USB drive from his jacket. Found this at work. Backed up some files before the bank locked me out of the system. Thought you'd want it. Locked you out? I asked, wiping sweat off my forehead. What for? Helping you, he said, shrugging. Boss wasn't happy I slipped you those docs. Suspended me pending review. But this, he tapped the drive, this is gold. Transaction logs, IP addresses, timestamps. Ties Ray's home computer to those credit cards. Even caught Greg logging in once. I took the drive, feeling its weight in my hand. Pete, you didn't have to do this. You could lose your job. Worth it, he said. They screwed you, man. I've seen him pull crap like this before. Ray stiffed my dad on a car deal years back. Never paid up. I ain't letting him slide again. I clapped him on the shoulder. I owe you, buddy. Big time. Just don't name your next kid after me, he said, cracking a smile. I'll swing by Mike's with you, back you up in court if it comes to it. We drove to Mike's office together, and I handed over the USB. Mike plugged it in. Eyes lighting up as he scrolled through. Holy hell, Jack, he said. This is a slam dunk. IP logs match Ray's address. Timestamps line up with the charges. We've got him dead to rights. What's next? I asked, leaning on his desk. We amend the suit, he said, typing fast. Add this evidence, push for criminal charges, identity theft, forgery, the works. Bank's already on your side with the fraud claim. This'll bury him. I nodded, feeling a mix of relief and dread. And Greg's shop? Bank's foreclosing next week, Mike said. Nothing you can do there. Your name's off it now. Greg's on his own. I drove home with Pete, the USB burning a hole in my pocket. That afternoon, I got a call from an unknown number. Picked it up, and a shaky voice came through. Jack? It's Carol, Linda's sister. Carol's the quiet one in the Larson crew, always hovering on the edges at family stuff. Hey, Carol, I said, cautious. What's going on? I heard about the lawsuit, she said, voice low. Hi, I know they're wrong. Ray's been bragging about borrowing your credit for months. Said you'd never notice. I should have said something. I gripped the phone tighter. Why didn't you? Scared, she admitted. They're my family. But after the barbecue, seeing you walk out, I felt awful. You didn't deserve that. Thanks, Carol, I said, softening a bit. Means something, you saying that. There's more, she added. Greg's been selling parts from the shop to pay bills. Off the books. Ray helped him hide it. They're deeper in this than you think. I thanked her again, hung up, and called Mike with the update. He laughed, dark and low. They're digging their own grave, Jack. We'll use it. That night, I was on the couch with a beer when the doorbell rang. Figured it was Pete or maybe Sarah, but when I opened it, there stood Tim, hands shoved in his jeans, looking like a kicked dog. Jack, he said, can we talk? Depends, I said, crossing my arms. You here to cuss me out or beg? Neither, he said, shifting his weight. I didn't know about the cards, man. Ray said it was all legit, that you were cool with it. I just found out yesterday. He showed me the statements, laughing like it was a joke. I stared at him, not buying it. You expect me to believe that? I don't care what you believe, he snapped, then softened. Look, I'm sorry, all right? For the barbecue, for all of it. I was a jerk. But Ray and Greg, they're screwed, and they're dragging us all down. I'm out. Out? I asked, raising an eyebrow. Done with him, he said. Told Mom I'm not defending this crap. I'll testify if you need me to, just don't lump me in with him. I studied him for a long minute. Tim's a loudmouth, but he's never been a liar. All right, I said finally. I'll tell Mike. But you better mean it. I do, he said, nodding quick. He turned to go, then stopped. Sarah's a mess, by the way. She's at Mom's, but she ain't talking to Ray neither. I didn't say anything, just watched him walk off into the dark. Inside, I cracked another beer and sat there, thinking. Carol, Tim, Pete, people were picking sides, and the Larsons were cracking apart. I didn't feel good about it, but I didn't feel bad either. They built this house of cards, and I was just the guy who stopped holding it up. Next day, Mike called. Court's moving fast, he said. Hearings in 2 weeks. Ray's lawyer, sweating, tried to settle out of court for 10 grand. I told him to shove it. We've got enough to take him for double that, plus jail time. Keep pushing, I said. I want this over. It will be, he promised. You're winning, Jack. Hang in there. I hung up, staring out the window at the empty driveway. Sarah hadn't called, hadn't texted. I wondered if she'd ever come back, or if I even wanted her to. The fight wasn't just with her family anymore. It was with us too. The 2 weeks before the court hearing flew by like a freight train. I kept busy, welding jobs during the day, splitting wood at night. Anything to keep my hands moving and my head clear. The house stayed quiet, no sign of Sarah, just a couple texts from her saying, still at Mom's, need space. I didn't push her. She'd figure out where she stood when the dust settled. Meantime, I had bigger fish to fry. Ray and Greg were about to face the music, and I was the one holding the baton. Mike kept me posted. The bank finished its fraud probe, pinned the credit card square on Ray's IP address, and Greg's shop got seized the day before the hearing. Pete's USB drive was the clincher. Logs showed Ray logging in from his den, same time those charges hit. Carol's tip about Greg selling parts off the books checked out too. Mike dug up receipts from a shady buyer in the next county. Tim stuck to his word, ready to testify about Ray bragging over the statements. It was a damn avalanche, and the Larsons were caught under it. The morning of the hearing, I put on my best flannel shirt, not much for suits, and drove to the courthouse. Mike met me out front, clapping me on the back. "Ready to kick some ass, Jack?" he said, grinning. "Born ready," I replied, though my stomach was doing flips. We walked in, and the place was packed. Ray, Greg, Linda, even Carol and Tim, all sitting stiff as boards. Sarah wasn't there. Didn't know if that hurt or helped. The judge was an older guy, gray hair, no-nonsense type. Mike laid it out. Fraud, forgery, identity theft, the whole ugly mess. He showed the bank docs, Pete's logs, my clean credit now that the cards were off it. Ray's lawyer tried to spin it, said I'd loaned the money willingly, but the judge wasn't buying it. "You expect me to believe Mr. Tanner approved the lake trip you didn't take?" he snapped. "This signature's a fake, and your client's computer says he did it." Tim took the stand, voice shaky but firm. Ray laughed about it, he said. "Showed me the statements," said Jack's too dumb to notice. "I didn't know it was stolen till later." Ray glared daggers, but Tim didn't flinch. Carol went next, quiet but steady. "He bragged in the kitchen," she said. "Said Jack's credit was family property. I should have spoken up sooner." Linda sobbed into a tissue, and Greg just stared at the floor. When it was my turn, I kept it simple. "I trusted him," I told the judge. "Fixed their stuff, paid their bills, co-signed their loans. They thanked me by stealing $8 grand and laughing in my face. I ain't here for revenge, just want what's mine back." The judge didn't take long. "Raymond Larson," he said, "you're guilty of identity theft and forgery. 6 months in county jail, 10 grand restitution to Mr. Tanner. Gregory Larson, you knew about the fraud and hid illegal sales. 3 months jail, 5 grand restitution. Case closed." The gavel banged, and that was it. Ray cursed under his breath as the bailiff cuffed him. Greg didn't say a word, just let him lead him out. Linda wailed, "Jack, how could you?" But I didn't look at her. I walked out with Mike, sun hitting my face, and took a deep breath. "That's that," I said. "Not quite," Mike replied. "Civil suits next, damages for pain and suffering. Could net you another 20 grand. They'll pay to the nose." "Let's do it," I said. "They owe me more than money." That night, I was home grilling steaks, celebrating, I guess, when the doorbell rang. It was Sarah, standing there in jeans and a hoodie, eyes red. "Jack," she said, I heard. "Ray and Greg, they're gone." "Yeah," I said, leaning on the doorframe. "Court didn't mess around." She nodded, biting her lip. "I should have been there. I was scared, Mom's a wreck, and I didn't know what to do. But I talked to Tim, Carol, they told me everything." "I'm sorry, Jack. I didn't see it. I studied her, the woman I loved for 7 years, and saw something new, regret, maybe, or just clarity." "You see it now?" I asked. "Yeah," she said, voice breaking. "They used you. Used us. I let him, and I hate myself for it." I didn't say anything for a minute, just let the words hang. "Steaks are on," I said finally. "You hungry?" She blinked, then nodded. "Yeah. Can I stay?" "Door's open," I said, stepping aside. She walked in, and we ate in silence, the clink of forks louder than any apology. It wasn't fixed, not yet, but it was a start. Next day, I got a letter, no return address, just a scrawled note. "Jack, you were right. I'm out too." "Linda." I stared at it, stunned. Linda, bailing on Ray? Didn't see that coming. I tucked it away, figuring she'd call if she meant it. For now, I had my win, money coming, Ray and Greg locked up, and Sarah back under my roof. The Larsons were done ruling my life. I spent the evening in the garage, welding a new gate for the yard, something mine, not theirs. The torch hissed, sparks flew, and I felt lighter than I had in years. The reckoning was over, and I'd come out on top. The weeks after the court hearing settled into a rhythm I hadn't felt in years, quiet, steady, mine. Ray and Greg were behind bars, the bank was cutting me checks for the restitution, and Mike was still pushing the civil suit, saying we'd see a fat payout by fall. I didn't care much about the money anymore. 15 grand was coming from Ray and Greg, and that was enough to square things. What mattered was the weight off my shoulders, like I'd been carrying a rusted engine block and finally set it down. Sarah stayed. That first night with the steaks turned into a week, then a month. We didn't talk much about the Larsons at first, just cooked, watched TV, sat on the porch with beers. It was like we were feeling each other out, seeing if we could fit again after everything cracked apart. One night, she looked at me over her plate of meatloaf and said, "Jack, I was wrong. I should have stood with you from the start. Can we fix this?" I chewed slow, thinking. "We can try," I said. "But it's gotta be different. No more playing second fiddle to your folks." "Never again," she promised, and I believed her. She'd cut ties with Ray and Greg, didn't visit, didn't call. Linda was another story. Sarah still talked to her, but it was tense, clipped. That letter from Linda stuck with me, though. I figured she'd reach out when she was ready, but I wasn't holding my breath. The garage became my sanctuary. I started taking on more welding jobs, fixed a farmer's gate, built a custom trailer for a guy down the road. Word got around, and soon I had a backlog. Kept me busy, kept the cash flowing. Sarah pitched in too, started doing the books for me, something she'd done for her dad's old hardware store. "You're good at this," she said one day, grinning over a spreadsheet. "Might need a bigger shop soon." "Maybe," I said, liking the sound of it. Tanner welding. Got a ring to it. Summer faded into fall, and the Larsens stayed gone from my life. Tim swung by once, hauling a cooler of fish he'd caught. Peace offering, he said, setting it on the porch. I'm done with the family crap. Moving to the coast, got a job on a boat. Good for you, I told him, cracking a beer with him. Stay out of trouble. Learned my lesson, he said, and I figured he meant it. Carol called too, said she'd left her husband, Greg's older brother, and was starting over in Ohio. You woke me up, Jack, she said. Thanks. I didn't know what to say to that, so I just wished her luck. Then one crisp October morning, I was out back chopping wood when Linda's old Buick rolled up. She climbed out, thinner than I remembered, hair gray and loose. Jack, she said, voice soft, can we sit? I nodded, led her to the porch. She sat, hands folded in her lap, and stared at the trees. I left Ray, she said finally. Divorce papers are filed. He's a liar, a thief. I didn't see it, till you made me look. Didn't mean to break your family, I said, leaning on the rail. You didn't, she replied. They did. I'm sorry, Jack, for all of it. The barbecue, the money, the way we treated you. I was blind. I nodded, letting it sink in. Appreciate that, Linda. What now? Moving to my sister's in Kentucky, she said. Fresh start. Sarah's welcome anytime. You too, if you want. We'll see, I said, keeping it neutral. She hugged me quick, awkward, then drove off. I watched her go, feeling something close up, like a door I didn't need open anymore. That night, I took Sarah out to the field behind the house. Built a fire, cracked some beers, and we sat under the stars. You ever think about starting over? I asked, poking the flames with a stick. With you? She said, leaning on my shoulder. Yeah, right here's good. I grinned, first real smile in months. Got an idea, then? Let's build something new shop, bigger place, whatever. Just us. She looked up, eyes bright. I like that. No more folding chairs in the corner. No more, I agreed. Our table, our rules. Winter hit, and we got to work. I sold some scrap, pooled the restitution money, and bought a chunk of land down the road. 5 acres, room to grow. Started framing a shop with a little house attached, nothing fancy, just ours. Sarah drew up plans, I welded the beams, and Pete even pitched in on weekends, saying he'd landed a new job at a credit union. Better gig, less drama, he said, hammering nails. By spring, it was done. A steel-roofed shop with a porch, a kitchen where Sarah baked pies nobody laughed at, and a bedroom with a view of the hills. I hung a sign out front. Tanner Welding and Repair. First customer was a trucker needing a hitch fixed, paid cash, said he'd spread the word. Business picked up fast, and I hired a kid from town to help out. Sarah and I got hitched again quiet, just us and a preacher, renewing what we'd almost lost. Linda sent a card, Tim a fish smoker as a joke. The Larsens faded into memory, a bad dream I'd woken up from. One day, I was welding a gate when Sarah brought me a coffee, kissed my cheek, and said, "This is home, Jack." Yeah, I said, looking at her, the shop, the life we built. Damn good one too. I don't look back much now. Ray's out of jail, last I heard, living in a trailer somewhere. Greg's bouncing between jobs. I don't care. I've got my hands full, welding, loving Sarah, living free. The old Jack, the one who begged for a seat at their table? He's gone. The new me builds his own, and it's sturdy as hell.